So just over a week ago, Papa Asiadu was cast as Severus Snape in the upcoming HBO Harry Potter series. He released this little statement following this. An honour and a privilege to be going on this journey with these legends. We shall eat and we shall leave no crumbs. See you at Hogwarts, Professor Snape X. Now, I have been very clear on where I stand with this casting. I have no issues with Papa as an actor. He is immensely talented, however, the description of Snape has not been met, despite being promised an authentic retelling. They should have cast Papa as a character who has a much lesser description. I also believe he is way too handsome for the role. Alan Rickman, by definition, was also way too handsome for the role. I came across this article yesterday saying that a black Snape could work. So, before we get into that article, I just want to say hello and welcome back to Chat About It, Don't Shout About It with me, Rachel, the Queen of the Woke, as crowned by one of my haters, not by myself. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe to the channel, switch on the notification bell so that you know I am releasing another video. I release a Doctor Who video on a Sunday and then we cover news that is woke throughout the week. Now, this article that I have for you comes from The Guardian. A black Snape in the new Harry Potter seems designed to cause controversy, but it could work. Of course, it was designed to cause controversy. They put the feelers out knowing what the response would be and still went through with it. I do not doubt Papa's acting ability. I've already stated that. When I judge this choice of casting, I'm not judging Papa's talent because I've not seen him do the role. I'm judging the calls that are made by the higher ups. Anyway, let's continue with this article. After months of speculation, HBO announced part of the cast of the latest round of Harry Potter IP mining. The new TV adaptation of the original books will feature John Lithgow as Dumbledore, Nick Frost as Hagrid, and Papa Asiadu as Snape. As the Mail and Telegraph headlines were quick to inform the readers, yes, this means a black actor in that iconic role. There is a real concern that Asiadu is drinking from the offing chalice, that he will be associated with an author who is at the forefront of a gender-critical movement that has succeeded in redefining the rights of trans people to their detriment. That he will have to weather the racist storm of Potterheads enraged at the diversion from book accuracy. Snape is described as having sallow skin, and he's saying that and making that point because black people can't get back sallow skin, just so you know, and deal with opportunists looking to illustrate their next rant about how the world has succumbed to woke orthodoxy. All of this is in a show that is slated to last a decade. Now, firstly, Papa may just love the series too much to even care about what the author thinks. He also may be adult enough to say, agree to disagree. Or maybe, just like me, he would say, we are all entitled to our own opinions. It's called being a professional, and he is guaranteed work for the next 10 years. So he's not really going to say anything, I would hope, against the IP. I also don't condone any potential racist storm that he may receive. We should get receipts, though, if it is reported. However, just because fans are angry about the change does not make it racist. There are black people out there on X who don't approve of this change. Also for being progressive, but not to the point where it devalues the original IP. The Harry Potter books' demographics are correct for the time that they were written in. And I know I grew up in that part. I'm skeptical about colourblind casting, yeah, me too, especially when it's presented as a magic bullet for diversity concerns in the arts. But I can't help but enjoy the audacity of Black Snape. If any performances from the original films were going to be rethought considerably, considering that casting so far is relatively aligned in appearance, bar a more handsome Quirrell, Snape is the most obvious choice. Alan Rickman's depiction was so singular that any actor who hewed closely to it would likely to be written off as doing a pastiche. He is also arguably the most complex and tragic figure in the series, inviting the most interpretation. So why not play around with it for a bit? Snape is supposed to be very ugly. What amount of makeup will they have to do on Papa to make him look as such? Will be beyond me. Yes, Snape is the most complex and tragic character of the series. However, if you start playing around with it, then you start adding context that was never there to begin with. And you don't even have to write it into it to do that. Many detractors are insistent that they would have been okay with, say, a black Dumbledore or a black Professor McGonagall. It's fair. But the details of Snape's arc within the series are made invariably more touchy and loaded if the character is black. Harry and his friends' suspicion of their potions professor is down to the sensing a menacing, scheming intent behind his cold disposition. It's more than just that. Cue the imagined new Snape going, "Is it 'cause I'm black?" Sorry. I can't imagine Snape doing that. Harry's dad, James, and his friend bullied Snape at school in the 1970s, making him levitate and then hanging him upside down. If unchanged in the new series, this somewhat depends on the casting of James's friends. This could now look like an image of racist bullying. Perhaps that would make James Potter irredeemable, particularly considering the real experiences of black people in boarding schools, or it could simply deepen the series' depiction of vulnerability and torment. So yes, you add more to the James Potter character. James does have redeemable qualities, and if you do that, is he then redeemable? So the author also acknowledges the fact that people have mentioned McGonagall and Dumbledore as black. These would be a better choice in many respects because they do have lesser of a description, but we also do not know all that much about their backstories. Well, in comparison to Snape, I think we know a fair bit less, especially in the eyes of McGonagall. We have a fair bit about Dumbledore. Yes, this does become about racism with Snape. It also becomes about internalized racism within the children. It would also show a black boy being levitated, hanging upside down from a tree. That's not really a historical image, as far as I'm aware, that's associated with the United Kingdom. This is adding things that were never there. Snape himself is also a racist. In that very scene, he calls Lily a mudblood. You're telling me that would work? The Harry Potter series already has racism in its own format. Just my opinion. It's worth pointing out that Snape being portrayed by a black actor isn't automatically the same as there being a black Snape. Which is, you just said black Snape earlier. Okay, you just contradicted yourself, but okay. HBO could simply gloss over the racial implications behind such a decision. After all, the bigotries and oppression of system of muggles do not neatly map onto the magical world. But if well executed, this casting represents an opportunity. I am incredibly intrigued by this idea of a black man who is socially ostracized in his youth and then joins the Death Eaters. By the way, he was ostracized by his parents to begin with, okay? Akin to an extremist white supremacist party in the real world, who realizes the errors in his ways and gives his life in service of redeeming this mistake. The story alone doesn't necessarily need the dynamic of race, but who in our current times may be better placed to represent such internal conflict, yearning for acceptance, and a defection from such ideologies than a black actor. Firstly, I have no reason to believe that HBO will just gloss over this. Once you've made that decision, the implication is already there without even doing anything. However, this author of this article has to admit that Snape's story is not attached to race. Even the black man joining the white supremacist group intrigue is a bit of a stretch because the Death Eaters are just pure evil, and entertainment also hates the tropes that black people are evil or they get offed first in the film. They don't like that. And by the way, Snape is a very selfish man. And he's horrible. He doesn't really have a massive redemption. Everything he did was for his own gain and his own guilt. Okay, so, well, anyway, that's just my opinion. Behind the furore, though, this is a much larger issue about the kind of restrictions that are placed on the careers of black actors and other creatives. Asiadu is a black actor, whereas colleagues are just actors. Okay. I am a black writer where my peers are just writers. Okay. Perhaps Asiadu being too black, for the role will mean some people give the TV series a miss. That's fine. They can just wait around for the next IP. Okay. This, I don't know about the writing world, but this is not true. Okay. Casting today is so much more diverse by policies of the entertainment companies, production companies, and the law. In acting, we have what we call the 98% and the 2%, and Papa is in the 2%, meaning that he is nearly always in acting work. The 98% are the jobbing actors who consider themselves very lucky when they land acting work, as it's difficult to come by when people in the 2% are more likely to be favoured, and the 2% is diverse, just like the 98%. Let me know what you think. Chat about it, don't shout about it. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you soon. Bye bye.